I went to the border of North Korea.
Let's go. Hello and welcome to this episode of Tripology. I'm Alan and I'm here with the ever soulful Adam.
You as a musician, mate, what does it mean to have soul?
To have soul means that not only can you hit the right notes, but you do it with a smile on your face, yeah?
To be a Motown singer. I think I'm the opposite, aren't I, to a Motown singer?
In many ways, you are. But I've always thought of you as a sort of Motown singer in cryosis, you know, one waiting to come out.
Well, we're not talking about Seoul in that sense. We're talking about Seoul, the capital of Korea, which is somewhere I was very recently, and I've been waiting for a very long time to talk to you about this, mate.
Now, apart from the E, that little vowel that's been snuck into the word Seoul, what other differences are there between Seoul the place and Seoul the feeling?
Seoul the place, a little bit more Asian, you might say, not associated with soul music from what I know.
Yeah.
Seoul is a vast city. I mean, it's actually somewhere that we've spoken about going together, isn't it? Because you've, let's say that South Korea tickles your fancy.
It does.
Yeah. Why is that again? You want to teach over there?
I've always felt my fancy being perpetually tickled by South Korea, and that's because I've once read that it's an excellent place for backpackers to get an extreme wage.
Oh, high earnings.
Someone once told me that they went with a TEFL, teaching English as a foreign language.
Mm-hmm.
They went to Seoul,
right, and
they saved $30,000 in 1 year.
Oh my goodness,
which is quite good.
Working as a teacher?
No. Yeah, they were working as a teacher there. Yeah,
working as a soul singer. No, it was an amazing time. I was there for much longer than I thought I was going to be. The journey there was actually quite funny because I was in Taiwan and I finished my long cycle ride around the whole of Taiwan, ending and finishing in Taipei. And you remember we were talking a lot about Nepal at that time.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to go to Nepal. It was about the time of year. You said, do you know what, mate? If you are going to go to Nepal and hike the Everest region, I'd probably do it exactly the way I did it.
Yeah, in the Tripology chronology, I was travelling around Turkey, and I was texting you back and forth about whether you should go to Nepal or not.
Yeah, and I was a little bit nervous, to be honest. I didn't know whether physically I was in the best condition because, you know, of course, I'd just come off the back of 6-7 months in India and Pakistan, and I was dealing with loads of gastrointestinal issues, which featured on a few episodes.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought that going to South Korea, famous for its spicy, fermented and pickled foods, would sort me out. But I think fermented foods are good for your gut, aren't they?
Very good, yeah. I'm not sure if you've already got a weak gut, then fermented foods are the best idea. I think they bolster the probiotic situation of an already healthy gut. But if you introduce it to an already damaged gut, I think potentially you're adding insult to injury.
Well, I think it was my last resort. I thought maybe my resources had been depleted, all the good bacteria was long gone, and maybe it needed revitalising in spectacular fashion. So I chose South Korea, which I was, I think, do you know what, to be completely honest with you, I'm always looking for an excuse to go to East Asia.
I've noticed that about you. You're a man that's always on the precipice of just getting on a plane and flying to Japan.
Yeah.
When we were in Pakistan, I constantly had to rein you back to reality. We're in Pakistan, Adam. Adam comes out of the bathroom in a kimono. No, Adam, get your shalwar kameez on. We're in Pakistan.
Always, trying to encourage us to travel east because it's slightly closer to Japan.
Yeah, exactly.
But, it's just somewhere that I really love, somewhere that I feel at home. I mean, I'd really miss living in Hong Kong. Not that they're the same, obviously. But I hadn't been to South Korea, and I did say to myself at the beginning of the year, you should go to a few countries this year you've not been to.
Yes.
So chose South Korea. I had actually anticipated or really wanted to get another bicycle and cycle all the way from northern South Korea, not North Korea, northern South Korea, all the way down to the bottom of South Korea and then perhaps over to Japan.
Despite having come off your bicycle in the Honda.
Yes.
Do you think that...
Good memory, Juan Down, good memory.
Thank you so much. I listened to Tripology podcast. Do you think that in a manner similar to someone who's never got a tattoo before, but then has a tattoo, experiences the pain of the needle printing ink onto their skin, they then get multiple tattoos, and the next time you see them, they're covered in cheetah print.
Yeah.
Do you think that you, having come off your bicycle, thought, I need more of that in my life?
Yeah, quite possibly. I had such fun on that bike, and obviously that crash towards the end, which left a sour taste in my mouth. I thought, you got to do it. It's a fantastic way to travel South Korea by bike. But what I didn't anticipate was the freezing cold temperatures.
Right.
It was so cold in Seoul.
You're the tattoo addict of the bicycle world. You are addicted to pain.
I don't think I had in my head that I would come off the bike. That's not the aspect of cycling I really like, is the crashes. They do make good episodes.
Yeah, they do.
But yeah, I flew into Incheon, actually, which was one of the most well-known airports, I suppose, one of the most easily accessible on the west. It's about an hour or so outside of Seoul, the city. And I don't know if I told you this at the time, but I flew in so late that I decided to sleep the night in the airport.
Okay, I want to hear about this because I've got a layover in an airport coming up, an overnight layover.
Oh, cool.
And I'm a little bit nervous about it
Yeah.
because the airport that I'm sleeping in is the airport where Tom Hanks's character in The Terminal is based on. He lived in that terminal for 18 years.
Oh, am I going to see you again? What if you just end up living there and every episode, one half of it's in the terminal?
Make for an interesting podcast. Yeah. So give me some tips. What can I expect when sleeping in an airport overnight? I have done it before, but not as recently as you.
Okay. Well, hopefully the listener will find this valuable as well. I think if you are thinking about staying overnight in an airport, important to know whether the airport, in terms of its restaurants, shops and facilities, are open 24/7.
Yeah.
Maybe if there are some benches and little quiet places you can take yourself off to as well. I wouldn't worry about spending a night in an airport because loads of people do it. And I felt like a bit of a cheapskate for making that decision. I'll be honest with you. I flew in about 10:30, 11 o'clock. And I knew that it was, say, an hour or so journey into Seoul, whereas, that is where I was going to end up staying for another week. But because I was looking at the hotel prices and what time I was likely going to arrive at that hotel, I just just decided to have a night for free, for what is free.
Yeah.
I
don't think it's cheap. I think it's quite gangster. That's true travel. Using your backpack as a pillow.
Exactly right. And I've done it in Manila, and I think I've done it in a few other airports as well. But don't ever think that you shouldn't be or you don't deserve to be sleeping in an airport, because it just makes so much sense on so many levels. I mean, maybe our parents' generation is a bit of a hard sell.
Yeah.
I didn't want to say to my parents, when they're like, oh, you do let us know when you get to Seoul, won't you? Let us know how you get to the hotel and if it's all right and stuff. I mean, I'm not going to tell them I'm sleeping literally on the floor of an airport.
The last time I did it was on that 72-hour layover from Morocco to Belize.
Oh, yeah.
Featured in an episode. That was the last time I slept in an airport, and it was also the last time I slept that month. So when I was having sleepless nights in the jungle of Belize, I was very much like looking back on that airport sleeping with nostalgia, like, oh, remember when you used to sleep in an airport?
Yeah, I don't know if that means that the bar for us is that much lower, but it also increases your options, doesn't it? If you are willing to just sleep on the floor of an airport, which I don't think, heaven forbid, should someone think that they are above that.
No, I think if anything, as travellers, we should all try to sink to those levels more often. I think it's a smart thing to do. I actually am preferentially choosing it. I'm arriving in Paris with enough time to leave the airport and go and get a hostel and then come back in the morning. Like, definitely enough time to do that. I'm arriving at 7 p.m. and my flight's at 11 the next morning. I'm choosing to sleep in the airport because of the experience.
But hang on, are you going to leave and then come back for the evening? Are you going to leave and go and explore and then come back for the night?
No.
You're just going to stay in the airport the
I'm
entire
going to arrive
time?
at 7 p.m. I've got some calls that need to make.
Okay.
I'm going to go to sleep around midnight, sleep for a good 8 hours, wake up and saunter to my gate. That's the plan.
I mean, this episode is obviously going off in a different direction, but I do think it's valuable information. What are you looking for in a place to sleep in an airport?
Well, I'd like to take this opportunity to say there is a website. I was hesitant to say it because I don't know the name of the website, but I'm going to say it anyway and trust that if you click, whether you're listening on Spotify, YouTube, anything, if you go to the description, there'll be a link to this website and it rates the best airports for sleeping specifically.
Really?
And people write and say, oh, I slept in this airport, it was good. This airport kicked me out at 2 a.m. and I had to sleep on the grass outside. Leave reviews in sort of a couch surfing situation, but for airports.
Fair enough.
There'll be a link to that in the description. I think what I do is I check that website.
Okay.
And Charles de Gaulle, where I'm heading,
Yeah.
I mean, God bless him. He's got a great airport for snoozing.
It's 5-star, is it?
It's great, yeah.
Better than a hotel. Yeah. Well, I was already, when I went into Incheon Airport late at night, we've got our carry-on bag, of course, so it's pretty easy. I mean, you don't have to worry about your stuff because you can just put your head on it and, no one's going to wake you up. Exactly. Although, funny I should mention that, because I was dozing off in an area of the airport that I didn't end up sleeping in because of what I'm about to tell you. But I was about to fall asleep and a lady, she shook my shoulder, woke me up, Korean lady, and she gave me two traditional Korean sweets and said, I don't know if you've tried these yet, but these are traditional Korean sweets and I'd like to give them to you as a gift.
It's a power move from her.
Yeah, it was lovely. It was
Wake
really
up. Yeah. Life's too short to be sleeping when you could be trying a traditional Korean sweets.
Yeah, so I thought that was really lovely and I ate those over the coming days. But
the old sleeping Korean traditional sweet scam that's taken so many travellers' possessions over the years.
I know. Yeah, but I just thought, wow, I'm in Korea. I love it already.
It's like one of those things you read on a quick guide to South Korea. You go on, it goes, never ever accept a sweet from a Korean lady whilst you're sleeping.
Yeah, I was a bit startled by it because I was half asleep, but after that I took the sweets, said thank you, and then nipped upstairs, and I think I got about 5 or 6 hours.
Wow.
Following morning, headed into Seoul, and I mean, I was met with, one of the biggest cities I've ever been to, mate. It's a little bit overwhelming. It is that big, and it's quite spread out, which I think compounds the issue. Because would you say you're a city person?
I like cities and nature with equal part. I think
cool.
that I really enjoy both of them. I'm not one of these travellers that go, I don't like the cities. I do quite like cities. I think that's like a hub.
Yeah, well, the infrastructure in South Korea in general, but also specifically in Seoul, is incredible. The metro system's fantastic. It's obviously heavily populated. The population's about 9.5 million. Very spread out, as I said, number of areas. I would recommend going there if you are interested in Seoul and you are a city person, a week minimum.
Okay, great.
Yeah, there's a lot to do there. And, if you're interested in food, for example, there's loads of night markets. I'll be honest, the most famous night markets,
oh no,
being Gwangjang and Namdaemun.
You didn't like Gwangjang and Namdaemun? I
liked them, but I didn't have the best food there.
Okay.
So they are quite touristy. They do feel, you see the food tours going around. And I just wanted to try some choice things I'd seen on YouTube and other blogs and stuff. One of which was I'm afraid to say it, mate, live octopus.
Okay. a live cephalopod.
It's still animated. It's not alive. So it's so recently.
Who's animating it?
Its own nervous system. So it's been killed, and it's an octopus that I imagine was alive and swimming about just a few moments before.
Have you seen popular documentary My Octopus Teacher?
No.
In which a South African man bonds with an octopus, capturing the audience's heart to such an extent that many of us vowed never to eat cephalopods again.
Oh dear. I haven't seen that, and had I seen that, maybe I still would have eaten it.
Was it delicious?
It was. I mean, it tasted of the sesame dressing that it was covered in. But the problem is, and this is a top tip for all you travellers out there that are going to eat anything, you do need to chew the tentacles again and again and again. Do chew them a lot, because about 6 to 10 people die each year from eating the live octopus.
What happens to them?
The suckers. You feel them inside your mouth and on your tongue.
And they're still suctioning actively?
Yeah. It's really scary. I mean, even just as an experience, I know there's probably people listening to this thinking, oh my God, I would never eat a live octopus. That sounds awful, inhumane and whatever else. But it is one of those things that lots of people interested in food try when they're in South Korea. It's very famous for that. It's not always that easy to find, because I don't know whether we're imposing our Western views on other people's food and food cultures, but it really is important. I mean, it's no joke. They do suck the inside of your mouth to the point where it hurts. I felt them on my tongue, the inside of my gums, and if you don't chew them well enough, there is definitely a chance that you could choke. And
6 to 10 people do that every year. They die from eating this octopus.
Yeah, and I don't know if they're tourists.
Well, I want to know what sort of a percentage that is of the total people, because if 20 people try this octopus a year, and it's like a 50% mortality rate
right,
eating the octopus, that's significantly worse.
Yeah, I do think as well it's important to add that I was surrounded by locals in this restaurant, and a number of the tables did have the live octopus dish on the table. So it isn't something that is this touristy attraction. Like, you know, when you go to Thailand, you go to Koh San Road and there's people waving tarantulas.
Drink the heart of a snake. Yeah, that sort of thing.
Yeah, or waving tarantulas and crickets and cockroaches around on sticks. Thai people don't eat that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, maybe there was some indigenous tribe years ago out in the jungle that did.
Sure.
But
in general,
yeah, that's not Thai cuisine.
There's more pad Thai than tarantula legs being eaten.
I think that is just a touristy gimmick, to be honest with you. But whereas this one didn't seem like that. So I would recommend eating it if you are interested in trying something pretty crazy, if you are what we've dubbed an adventurous eater. But otherwise, I mean, the food in Seoul, to be completely frank, I had much better food outside of Seoul than I did in Seoul. But that's for a different episode. We'll have to do a rice for breakfast on that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like the fact that you are trying all these adventurous things. I mean, look, you know, there's obviously controversial dishes being eaten all over the world, but I think if an octopus sounds like unique experience. Did it feel like an esophageal massage in a way?
No, quite the opposite. I mean, it felt more like, you know, when you go to the dentist, you might have a filling or a checkup, or a hygienist will clean your teeth. Yeah. The suction sort of hose that they use on the inside of your mouth, it's stronger than that. I mean, wow. It hurts. It actually hurts.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like a little pinch or a pinprick. You know, if you have an injection in your mouth, it might feel something akin to that. Maybe not as extreme, but eating something that is moving is quite an experience.
Well, you know, like a dental injection, leaving you sort of in a soporific state, let's go on a meditation break.
If you love the podcast as much as we love you, please could you take the time to rate the show on your favourite podcasting platform?
Yeah, go and give it 5 stars. Everyone else has. We're just waiting on you.
Thanks for supporting us. It means the world to us.
Like a cephalopod reduced to the sesame seed oil in which it's basted, allow your conscious mind to return into your brain. As we embark, you know, we want to hear more about Adam's trip in the most soulful city of all. It's Seoul.
Yeah. Well, I hope I don't get loads of hate online for eating that.
Eating a cephalopod?
Yeah, well, yeah, a live one. I mean, people eat octopus anyway.
Yeah.
But maybe not that close to its own death.
Listen, I know you. I've seen you stroke many a cat. I've seen you cuddle many a dog. You're an animal lover. You're very kind to the animals. But first and foremost, you're about travel and experience. You're an experientialist.
I am. Well done.
And
Cheers.
if you see other people, local people, eating a cephalopod, I know the chances of you also ordering a cephalopod, they're 100%. Yeah. And I can't begrudge you. That's in your nature.
Who am I to say otherwise?
And when I was with you in Pakistan and you ordered the sheep's brain, and I was going, I'm a vegetarian, I don't want to have that sheep's brain, you looked at me in a way which made me feel like the most respectful thing to do was have some sheep's brain with you.
Yeah, because of not necessarily for the animal. I mean, maybe it is, but also we run a serious travel show. Yeah. And food culture is important.
Yeah. And sometimes I think, like when I was in Africa traveling, I was traveling with a vegetarian.
Okay.
And we were with an African family who served us a goat that they killed specially for our arrival. And she said, I'm a vegetarian.
Oh, no. That's my worst nightmare.
And to remedy the situation, because the Kenyan family felt so like, oh, my God, she's not going to eat the goat. They went and killed a chicken for her.
Oh, wow.
So actually, sometimes vegetarianism
results in the death of twice as many animals.
Right. So that's all I'm saying, okay? And I heard a rumor recently that cephalopods actually, they pretend to be smart, but they actually have distributed intelligence.
Okay.
So if it wasn't their intelligence goes out into their limbs. Yeah. So they're actually 8 times less as smart as you think they are.
But hang on a second. I know we've got a lot to get through in this episode, but did you speak to the family who killed the chicken and say that this also isn't vegetarian? Or did she just have to eat the chicken?
She took the chicken and then when the family wasn't looking, put the chicken onto my plate.
Okay, and you had double servings.
Because it was getting disrespectful. Because do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, yeah.
It was getting a little bit awkward. So whenever she was like, oh, I love that painting on your wall, and then put the chicken onto my plate.
God, yeah. I mean, when I was living in Hong Kong, I saw many a menu that had a vegetarian section that was filled with pork. So you do have to be careful, especially in Asia.
Well, I've never seen mammals listed as vegetarian options, but in Africa, oftentimes we come across the whole, I don't eat meat, okay, have poultry then.
Have chicken. It'd be interesting to learn more about that. If you do have more information, I mean, send us an email. tripologypodcast@gmail.com, because I'm sure that people come across that sort of stuff all the time. And maybe in some cultures, chickens are seen as a different type of meat.
Yeah, well, I think meat often, like carne in Spanish, it's the ubiquitous linguistic term for meat, that comes on off a barbecue and not from a bird.
Yeah, interesting stuff. But I have got a lot to get through, mate, and this episode is primarily going to be about one of the best things, or maybe one of the most popular things to do in South Korea, which is, ironically, go to North Korea.
My goodness. Yeah, I want to hear about it. I can see, for the people who are just listening to the audio and not on YouTube or listening to the video on Spotify, Adam's got a sheet of paper on his lap, and there's so much on that sheet of paper that we've had to power through because I've been talking about chicken in Africa. So please tell us about the journey. You went to North Korea, to the DMZ.
Yeah, to the DMZ, so the Demilitarized Zone, which is about 160-mile stretch, and it's about 4 kilometres wide. I think 1953 there was an agreement, the Korean Armistice agreement, and it was basically an area that was, is a delimited zone where North Korea and South Korea sort of stop the other one from invading the other, even though there are little communities in and amongst these areas. So, I mean, it's a very popular thing to do. You can go with a number of different tour companies. Honestly, right off the bat, I'll tell you that it is quite contrived. It is very touristy. You will feel like you're on a tour, and maybe it's not that useful to go so negative so early on. But I want to make sure I get this in. You might even feel like it's South Korean propaganda against North Korea.
Right, yeah.
The tour itself.
You know when you have a best friend and they tell you they've done something,
right,
and you're kind of feeling about, I've never been interested in the DMZ at all, really.
Really?
Yeah, because it's so often early when I was traveling, people who like wanted to tick boxes and sound like they've done something really interesting in North Korea would say, oh, I've been to North Korea. Oh, really? What was that like? Oh, I went to the DMZ in South Korea. And I'm like, I don't know if you can claim having visited North Korea.
Well, no, they definitely haven't.
But don't they have that table that you can cross over and it's like technically North Korea?
I think things have changed recently, actually.
Okay.
I think in recent years. Yeah, I'm struggling to remember exactly what happened. But there's a number of things that have happened. Oh, hang on. Wasn't there was a US Army soldier who ran across the border or did something crazy?
Is that right?
He's now shut down.
I know that Trump was the first president he crossed over with Kim Jong-un.
Yeah. He was invited into the country over the border. Sure. And I mean, even that looks really sort of contrived.
Well, forced. So I've always felt that way about the DMZ. It's kind of like, it's like North Korea world where you can go and sort of pretend you've been there, but you haven't really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll talk you through the tour.
Yeah.
Okay. So I went with DMZ Tours. It's a company I would recommend. I think they run more tours and the most popular tours. The vast majority of people that I spoke to, even just in South Korea in general, went with that same one company. They pick you up from the hotel 6:30, 7 a.m. And then you go out for a day. You get back about 3 in the afternoon. There's just a coach load of people driving around the DMZ, and that area is heavy militarized. Like, there's a lot of army, a lot of checkpoints. I would say overall it is worth going. Probably costs about, it was about 35, 40 quid, $50 for the day. No food included. But not even kimchi, not even a pack of kimchi.
No, and you needed that for your guts. So.
Yeah, I was worried actually on that day. God, you've just twigged my memory. I had a bit of a scare in the morning. I remember thinking, oh God, I actually didn't drink any coffee or tea or anything caffeinated just to make sure that I could do the coach journey.
Are there any bathrooms for the DMZ? Are they on the North Korea side or the South Korea side? What would you have done if you arrived in the DMZ? And you could see a toilet, the perfect toilet. You had to go, but it was on the North Korea side.
Honestly, mate, I would have stayed on the South Korean side and just shat myself. Because
that's a sad indictment, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the consequences are grave. And just to highlight that, I'll tell you about this English guy who may well be listening. If you are listening, you know who you are. But there was an English couple in front of us, really, really sweet. They were doing a little tour of Japan and South Korea over the course of 4 weeks. And you are not allowed, when you go to this observatory, right, where there's your guide will give you a little talk, and you can see into North Korea. You can see some villages in North Korea. You can see, a couple of buildings and things like that. It's actually quite a lovely view. It just looks like rolling hills, countryside, and that sort of stuff. And we were told that we absolutely cannot take photos in the direction of North Korea.
Right.
Okay. I don't know whether that's something that's imposed by the South Korean military or if it's an agreement between the North Korean army and the South Korean army.
Gotcha.
But this gentleman went outside and he snapped a couple of pictures of North Korea, right? And that's all it is. I mean, what can you learn from North Korea from just a picture of countryside, right? And another tour guide saw him do that and then reported him to the army. And
to the South Korean army or the North Korean army?
To the South Korean army.
Okay.
So the North Korean army, you don't see them.
Yeah.
It's all the South Korean
behind
army.
hills, aren't they? There's like rolling hills across the border apparently, and they have like, there's embankments like barracks and stuff.
Well, I mean, there's also a few tunnels that I'll get to in a minute. But it was really quite tense for a while. We were also told by our guide that you're not allowed binoculars. And then when we turned up there, the guide that reported the guy who was in my group had given her group binoculars. So we thought, well, hang on, are we allowed to look into North Korea or aren't we?
Well, maybe they have a special binocular license. You're not allowed binoculars in this tour, but we have Jim here. He's got really good eyesight. So you just ask him what he sees and he'll describe it to you. It's one of the benefits of DMZ tours.
Yeah, Jim Chi. No, he. So it was quite tense because he seemed like a really nice guy, the one who took the photos, and I had a number of conversations with him. He is a nice bloke. I don't know why. It's almost like when you see a sign that says "Don't touch wet paint."
Yeah.
You just have to do it. And even if you saw that photo, if I had showed you that photo that he took, you would never in a million years know that it's North Korea.
Sure.
There's no defining.
But maybe if he gave that to the right person, it would give them a strategical advantage. And
perhaps. Okay, I see. Did you used to work in intelligence?
I'm not allowed to talk about that.
So basically, he got pulled up by a couple of army officers, and they made him delete the photo on his phone and then go into his recently deleted album and then delete it there.
They didn't know about iCloud.
Yeah, he'd already posted it on Instagram. That's right.
Yeah.
But it was a little bit tense. I thought, oh God, is he going to be taken away? Because we were told with some degree of seriousness that we absolutely cannot take any photos.
Okay.
But yeah, so that spiced things up a little bit. Other than that, mate, you go to what's called the third infiltration tunnel, which is the third tunnel that was discovered by the South Korean army. And apparently the North Korean army had tried to dig all the way underneath the DMZ and then pop themselves up, wherever it was going to end, but it was discovered beforehand. And you get to walk down some of that. And
wow.
From memory, it's over 100 meters long. You go all the way down to... Well, I think it's actually 160 meters away underground from the border of North Korea. So it's as close as you can get to North Korea, really. But to be completely frank, if we can't be honest on this podcast, what can we be? It's a waste of time.
The tunnel?
The tunnel itself, yeah, because you have to walk so far down, so far down underground. It takes a very long time to walk all the way down. You have to wear a hard hat. You get told you go all the way down. You have a look at whatever it is to see there, which, spoiler alert, it's just a wall with a hole in it, and you can see some trees through the hole. You are underground, and then it is like a few concrete blocks. And on the other side of that is the tunnel that then goes into North Korea. But yeah, everyone came up from that tunnel thinking, I don't really see why that's a point, why that's something you do on the tour. It is literally a waste of time.
But it's the closest you can get to North Korea.
Yeah.
Would you tell people now you've been to North Korea?
No, never.
I respect that about you.
But I haven't, though.
Technically, I haven't. Who said that who'd been to the DMZ.
Who'd done the tour that I did.
Well, they'd done something similar. They'd not flown into North Korea. They'd not been to Pyongyang or anything. They were telling people they'd been to North Korea.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I've mentioned this article that I read a number of years ago. I think it was in Wanderlust, the magazine. And an alarming number of people, I think it's 33% of people, say that they've been to a country if they just have a layover in the airport.
I know. There's actually a record that's held by someone as having visited every country, and they included airports.
Well, do we just need to go and have a conversation with them and say, sorry, it's not valid?
She's geographically occupied a space.
Yeah.
It's completely irrelevant, isn't it?
But even in terms of immigration and border control, technically she hasn't been in some countries.
Yeah. Well,
if you haven't left the airport, you haven't technically been to the country.
She's occupied the physical space which is owned by that country.
Yeah.
It's wild claim, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. I think on the whole, right, the tour is definitely worth doing. I would say
sounds interesting. If I was in South Korea, I would go.
Yeah,
I would do it.
I would recommend doing it because it isn't that expensive. It is a full day. It is a good day out. And, you know, we've had conversations about doing tours very recently, actually, on some other episodes. And it's nice to just have things organised for you. The coach ride itself is actually used quite well. It's utilised to give you lots of information about the history of South Korea and North Korea, some of the things that have happened in recent years. The guide that we had was fantastic. He spoke amazing English. Clearly, like, very well executed, very well organised tour. The most interesting thing about the tour was that we had a North Korean defector on the coach who did a Q&A session.
Okay.
So how cool is that?
A North Korean defector.
Yeah, there was a woman who is North Korean. And
wow.
She left the country about 15 years ago.
How'd she get out?
Well, this is what's very interesting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she was getting peppered with questions, bless her, that was all being translated through the guide.
Okay.
And she got out using a number of brokers. And there are companies that you can pay large sums of money to in order to get out of North Korea. Usually what happens is you escape. I mean, it is like something out of a film.
Yeah. You
know, whatever it is you're imagining, where you're getting hidden in vehicles and transferred between other vehicles and then having to run in the middle of the night with all your possessions and all this sort of stuff. This is it, right?
Yeah.
This is how much people don't want to live in North Korea, apparently. I'm sure there are people who do, but this is going to be quite an interesting chat. So she said that she was...
You're guaranteeing that we can never visit North Korea, by the way. Never again.
No, I think we will.
It's off the cards now.
No, because I said that I think a lot of this was actually South Korea's propaganda against North Korea.
Yeah, actually.
6 to one and half a dozen to the other.
Yeah, every 2 sides to every story.
But I'm not going to reveal this woman's name, of course.
No, I think this is good, truthful, honest information. I'm like that you're doing it.
Yeah, so she used a number of brokers. She paid a few $1,000s. I think back at the time she left, it was about $3,500. Nowadays, it's $85,000.
Wow.
Or thereabouts to leave. And what was really sad about this woman was that she's got 3 children, 2 of which have left as well. I think at least one of them is based in China, and then maybe one of them's in South Korea with her. But she has a disabled son who's still in North Korea.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's quite sad. That sort of dampened the mood because you realise what she's gone through to leave North Korea.
Yeah.
You know, she's, dare I say, prioritised her own life.
Well, she has, but yeah, I don't know anything about her life in North Korea. How did she accrue such a massive amount of money?
Yeah, well, no, when she left, it was a few $1,000s. Now it's 85,000.
15 years ago. Yeah, but still a lot of money.
It is a hell of a lot of money. It is. But you pay these brokers and they basically look after your exit plan.
You get what you pay for. And $1,000, you'll be underneath a sawdust truck. But for $15K.
Well, she was moved through Southeast Asia, which seems to be quite a typical route. And then you go sort of down through Vietnam, back through perhaps, Thailand or whatever, and then back into South Korea. But there are a number of people who live in South Korea as North Korean defectors and then choose to go back because they just can't live the life in South Korea. Sometimes the devil right? It's amazing, really, to think. But she answered loads of really cool questions. I asked her one about the education system in North Korea. She said that children typically go to school until around midday, and then they go out into the fields. They do lots of agricultural work and that sort of stuff. Someone asked a really interesting question about whether there's a divide between the younger generation and the older generation in how they feel towards, the regime or the dictatorship or whatever. And a lot of the children are very supportive and very patriotic.
Right.
Because they absolutely have to be. And that's because the message that's passed down in households between sort of parents and then children is that they have to be patriotic. They tell them lots of good things, their kids, lots of good things about North Korea, about the regime, about the government, and all this sort of thing. So even though the parents between themselves might have an opinion about it, they are bound to sort of tell their children that they've got nothing to worry about, they live in the best country in the world, whatever it might be. I mean, don't quote me on that.
It's the most culturally annexed, isolated nation in the world, isn't it? It's like, I feel like people outside of it know nothing about it, really, other than what they're told by their government and their media about this is what North Korea is like.
Yeah.
Kim Jong-un's punished a defector by firing a missile at them, and that's kind of it. You just have those headlines.
Yeah.
But what it's actually like on the inside, no one really knows. And even tourists that do actually legitimately go there just do a tour of Pyongyang, really.
Yeah, I think they're shown what they're allowed to be shown.
Yeah.
Right. And one interesting addition to this conversation, I guess, is not only our view of North Koreans, but what do North Koreans think is our view of them? I mean, do they know that we think of them very differently to almost every other country on earth?
You imagine so. You imagine they know that in the extent that...
But how would they know that? Because they don't have access to the media.
Well, they know that they don't have access to the media.
Yeah,
and they know that we do.
But do they, though?
I don't know that they know.
It's interesting.
If you're North Korean, it's tripologypodcast.com. There's a contact form on there. You can write to us. Do you know that we have media?
But yeah, so she was like really interesting to talk to, and it was quite sad, a lot of it, actually, as you can probably imagine. That was right at the beginning of the day as well. I mean, I was spending more time just trying not to shit myself on the coach, but it was
after that kimchi, that free DMZ kimchi.
But no, it was good fun. So highly recommend going to the DMZ, and just I think sometimes when you travel, when you backpack, just take it at face value. You know, just for what it is. Don't wish that it was something it's not. Don't try and push the boundaries and take photos of North Korea.
Yeah.
You know, because you're going to ruffle feathers and maybe cause yourself some issues. He was quite lucky, that guy, that it was just, you know, two guys from the army standing over him and making sure that he deleted it. But it's interesting stuff. Do you know that they play music? The South Korean military play music, K-pop, into North Korea, so that the people that live in the villages there, the North Koreans, they can hear it, and it sort of inspires them to think about a life in South Korea where there's more sort of freedom and liberal thinking.
Wow. What's the big K-pop band called? The real
BTS, maybe?
They play some BTS out there.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, so
I like that.
I didn't really know anything, and I still don't, about K-pop, but going around some areas, you know, Gangnam. Okay, I don't know if we've got rights to use the music, have we? Gangnam.
The audience will have heard nothing then.
Right. But you must know Gangnam Style.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do the tune.
Psy.
Yeah, by Psy. I think he holds the record for the first ever YouTube video to reach 1 billion views. Yeah. Perhaps.
That's true.
He is hailed as you know, one of the greatest K-pop stars of all time. And I think at the time when I heard that song, so I don't know how many years ago it was, but it was bloody ages ago now, wasn't it? I just assumed that it was serious. That's what Korean artists were like, but it was actually done in irony.
Right.
That song.
He was parodying the style.
Yeah, but
that
it
makes
is.
sense.
I mean, it is very catchy. You can even go in Seoul. There is a huge statue with the two hands that are crossed over.
Right.
Gangnam Style. You know the dance.
Gangnam Style. Yeah, it was sort of a horse kind of riding stance.
Yeah, we're probably going to have to pay to use that now. That hum, because it was absolutely bang on.
Seconds.
But yeah, no, it's, you walk around some areas of Gangnam and you can see these little statues and that sort of stuff. But I mean, a lot of Koreans, when it comes to K-pop, they are fanatic. Yeah. So
I would like to encourage the audience who's listening to this now, in the manner of South Korea, playing Psy's Gangnam Style over the border. If you have a window, or you know, you're sitting on a bunk bed in a hostel, turn your speakers up, unplug your headphones, and let Tripology Podcast sing out into the hostel or onto the street and try and inspire people to travel that way. If, you know, our theme music, Silence Can Say So Much by Elephant Stone, us talking, if those dulcet tones don't inspire a generation to travel, then I don't know what will. Adam, I want to hear more about South Korea. It sounds like we're going to have to do another episode, really, on South Korea.
Well, there's absolutely going to be a Rise for Breakfast on Korean food, because a few of the best mouthfuls I've ever had in my entire life were in South Korea, not in Seoul, but in other parts. And I've got some pretty funny stories to tell you, one of which I will tell you in the Patreon section.
Okay, so next week, more South Korea content, including a Rice for Breakfast all about Seoul and South Korea. But right now, we're going to go to the Patreon section. It comes out 24 hours before the main podcast, and it's an extra 15 minutes that happens after the theme music. Adam's got some special stories to tell. In the meantime, Instagram at Tripology Podcast.
And head over to our website, tripologypodcast.com, where we write articles and we put all the episodes up and all that sort of stuff. It's good fun, mate.
You can learn more about me and Adam and what inspired us to go travelling in the first place. A brilliant read. All right, nice one, guys. Love you lots. See you next week. We're going to go to Patreon now.
Kamsahamnida. Bye-bye.
Bye.